All right, we're here, another episode of Confessions of a Street Broker. And with me today is probably the first broker I ever met in commercial real estate before I was really in commercial real estate. But been a long time friend and taught me a lot about real estate back in the day. So Mr. Pete Richardson with Primera. How you doing, man?
Good, man, Jeremy. Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I did meet you. It was with you and your brother at the Mecca at 6:30 for breakfast.
Yep.
And your brother goes, I gave you a couple books to read, Maverick Real Estate Investor and one or two others. And he gave me a list. He said, hey, because I'd left Robert Lynn and I'd gone on to Henry S. Miller. And he goes, here. And there was 8 things on it. I've still got it taped on my wall in my office at home.
Yeah.
And it's literally yellowed out where the tape is yellowed out on it. It's like, always be positive. Read The Greatest Salesman in the World by Mangino. And I was like, okay. And I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but it's still there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was, so, just to context for everybody, like, you'd had some pretty good success buying houses on the courthouse steps, and
yeah, we got into that. I started in the business. We'll go through that in a second, but with a guy, and he said, "Oh, you can go down to the courthouse steps and buy properties." And I was like, "What?" Yeah. And I was kind of learning a little bit, and I was like, well, I'll go down and try this. And I bought 2 or 3, and the first 2 were really good. The next 3 or 4 were not so good. And then I started just talking to bankers locally, and they started selling to us, and we were cleaning them up and flipping them. And then in the end, I was just buying them and flipping the paper. Yeah.
And, that's what Jeff was like. Hey, me and Jeff started looking at like flipping some houses and stuff. And he was like, man, he goes, we need to talk to my buddy Pete. He's done these things. So then we started having, we had several breakfasts at the Mecca.
It was, and that business was really, really good. And about 2007, I really saw the trend changing. I was like, I got to get out of this, because I could tell it was changing. And the last 2 we sold, we didn't make any money on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's what so I was flipping houses, and I had done 3 of them, and my 4th one, it was just a bear of a deal. I had a pool in it. I tried to rehab the pool, and then got into it, and it needed to be demoed and all. I mean, just all nightmare house. This house in Irving, and I got it under contract, and I was under contract, and they were building this development behind it. It was in Las Colinas, or it was really more like this MacArthur 635 area, and the guys trenching out the retaining wall behind it, like ripped the transformer down off the back of my property. Like that was on the other side of my fence, and just like 2 days before closing. And my gosh. And they got it fixed within about a week and got it all put back together, and the buyer closed. And this was in 2008, and the buyer closed, and then the first mortgage company fell like 2 days later. And I was like, I lost $10,000 on that deal, and I was like, you know what? It's probably time to hit the brakes on this business.
When you got to take money to the closing table, it's never a fun day.
No,
I don't care if it's $500 or $15,000. It's just never a good day. Never a good day.
Not a good feeling. So, but learned a lot. So I learned a lot doing that, and you kind of taught us how to chase the Roddy list and all those things. And Roddy's not even around anymore.
I don't think it is. I mean, that game, I mean, I met a guy, Art Singer, about the same time. Mm-hmm. We were all talking. He was really buying that stuff. He was an appraiser downtown.
Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, I still stay in touch with Art, but it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It used to be, there'd be a few people down there, and if it rained or it was snowing or something, there'd be nobody.
Yeah.
And if the price was lower than what the market value or the note, you could make some money. But now it's, I haven't been in 5 years, but it was like last time I went, there was 200 people bidding on one property.
Oh yeah.
It looked like the entrance to a basketball game.
Well, I mean, I guess, the internet's kind of saturated that, and it's a low barrier to entry, right? That's an entry level price point that a lot of retail type money can get into on the investor side. And, it's how a lot of people start,
Yeah. I think the internet's changed it. And I think also, I get at least 5 calls a month. Hey, will you sell me your property at such and such address?
Yeah.
And so I think, if somebody gets in trouble, they just, they one of these people calls them within a couple of weeks, and they go, "Oh yeah, we'll sell it for all cash."
Well, it's really a marketing game now.
Sure.
It's who has the best marketing to get the best leads. And it's funny. What I used to do was I got to the point where We Buy Ugly Houses. They kind of had the best marketing, for a while there, and Homevestors, and I would just buy houses off of them because they'd buy so many of them that they couldn't get to them all, so they'd wholesale one or two to you and all that stuff. And
I think now it's tough too because anybody who bought anything before 2019, before COVID, the price even on the tax rolls has doubled.
Yeah.
So I don't see how you can be negative upside down in a deal that you bought 5 years ago or more.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's plenty of equity for people, and there's so many people moving here.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. It was a fun game. I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot about construction. Did a lot of construction. So, well, man, let's get into it. Let's just kind of hear your story. Like, where'd you grow up? Where are you from? Just let's start there.
So originally, I was from South Louisiana. My dad was a seaplane pilot.
Okay.
He'd been a fighter pilot in the Navy, and so he was flying seaplanes. And about 1981, we kind of saw the writing on the wall. He was working for Texaco, and the oil field wasn't doing real well, and we could tell it was gonna get progressively worse. And my dad's like, "We got to figure something out." I was like 8 years old, and he's going, "We're gonna have to make a change." And my grandfather had been a pilot. With a gentleman named Charlie Viosca. And so my dad Charlie Viosca called my dad and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to work for Southland Corporation, 7-Eleven stores as a corporate pilot." And my dad was like, "Hey, this is what we've been looking for. We got to jump." I mean, so we came over here in 1982, and I can't believe how much Dallas has changed since 1982.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I live at Frankfort in the Tollway now, and I used to ride my bike from Marsh and Beltline over there to dove hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's nuts. So your dad was a seaplane pilot. Was that for Texaco? So was he like taking people out to rigs?
Yeah, taking people out to the kind of the inshore rigs, the stuff that's shallow water stuff. I mean, most of that stuff doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
that field's all been pulled out, but it was down around. We lived in Houma, which is down in Terrebonne Parish.
We have a deal in Houma right now.
Do you really?
Yeah, we're a pref equity piece on a Murphy's fuel station development down there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So we learned about Houma the other day.
Yeah. So my dad was a pilot. My grandfather was. My grandfather actually flew with Charles Lindbergh. So
okay, wow.
So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So y'all moved to Dallas. Your dad becomes a corporate pilot for 7-Eleven.
Yeah. And, so he's flying for Southland, and that lasted until Black Monday when 7-Eleven, obviously did a stock buyback, and that didn't go so well. And then my dad went on to work at U.S. Air in Pittsburgh, but we just stayed here.
Yeah.
He commuted back and forth. I mean, being a commercial pilot, you can jump on basically any airline and fly back and forth. So that's what he was doing.
Yeah. So where did you move to in Dallas when y'all moved here?
So we lived at Marsh and Beltline and Country Place, which is like the furthest point north before. I mean, at Marsh and Frankfort, the road went to dirt.
Yeah.
So it was like, we grew up in a neighborhood that had a small little 9-hole golf course, and we'd ride our bikes all the way north to Frankfort.
Yeah.
Getting all sorts of trouble up in there. But it's like now you got to drive, basically all the way to 380 to get in trouble on a bicycle.
I mean, you got to get past there now. You got to almost get to Gunner.
Yeah. It was fun to grow up in Dallas during those times.
Yeah.
And, it's been fun to watch Dallas grow as much as it has.
So where'd you go to high school?
I went to Earl Turner High School in Carrollton.
Earl Turner.
Yeah.
The Lions.
Man.
Okay.
So,
so you and then you end up at Tarleton State after that?
Yeah, I ended up at Tarleton State.
Did you want to be a cowboy or what?
No, I actually, my father passed away when I was a junior in high school, and I got involved in showing animals at the state fair in Houston.
Okay.
And
so you were a cowboy.
Yeah, I was a semi-cowboy, I guess I'd call it.
Yeah.
But I went down there. I felt like it was close, and I have some learning disabilities, so I thought, man, this is close. It's smaller school. It's not huge.
Yeah.
I'd been at R.L. Turner, which was 5,500 students at the time. Because Carrollton only had Turner and Smith. Yeah. So it's like, well, I was like, man, this feels pretty good. The class sizes are right. It's not like A&M where there's 600 in a basic class.
Yeah.
And it was 2-hour drive, so I could come back and forth.
Man, Tarleton's like turning into a real place now. Like,
It's 20. I believe it's 20,000 now, and it's they're actually building a parking garage on campus. It's like, what, all those parking tickets we had to pay when we were there?
They're finally handling the problem.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they're a Division I football program now too.
They're Division I, and if they had been eligible, they would have made it all the way. They would have made it to they would have got a
bowl bid.
Yeah, they would have got a bid to go to a bowl.
Yeah, no. I'm going to Stephenville next week to look at a couple sites so we do some residential development stuff, and I think they're underbuilt over there for they don't have any student housing.
They don't have enough. You know? I mean, it's just the amount that has grown down there is unbelievable.
Yeah.
They built a stadium that holds 25,000 people for football, and I was like, we were sitting on wooden bleachers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Tarleton played Texas Tech last year or the year before, and
they got walloped.
Yeah.
But they got walloped.
Expect that, but I mean, golly, from where they came, I mean, like when I was in college, Tarleton was, NAIA or was it Division II or I don't know what it was.
No, it was when I was there in '99. It went Division II the last year I was there.
Okay,
and then like last year they did play Tech, and the year before that they played TCU, and I was like, well. We got beat by 20 to 45 by TCU. And I was like, that's not very good. But then that was the year TCU made the national championship. So I was like, well, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
We at least, Tech, I think we got a field goal or maybe two, one each quarter.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, but, I think, not next year, but year after, next year, I think they play Baylor. And then the year after that, they'll play A&M at Kyle Field. That will be an interesting test for Texas, for Tarleton State.
I think programs like that can kind of they can really benefit from the transfer portal now. I mean, look at Southwest or Texas State. Like they're actually a pretty good program now based on the transfer portal. So I mean, I think Tarleton State will pick up some guys that are just like, hey, I'm not really getting my shot here at a bigger school, and they'll end up pulling some guys down. So.
I think you're already seeing
now. It's not down now, right? It's a lateral move now because they're another Division I program. So.
Yeah, they're Division I, and I know not next year, the year after they will be bowl eligible.
Yeah. So okay. So what'd you major in at Tarleton?
So I got a degree in animal science.
Okay. So what was the thought? You were showing animals and you wanted to stay in the animal world, or?
So at the time I had shown animals, and I was like, well, the program looked interesting, and I had a couple friends that I met over the summer that were going to school there, and I was like, I kind of enjoyed the people that I was hanging out with. So I was like, well, I'll get in the animal science program and then I'll figure out what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you graduate, and do you get into the animal field for a while or what?
So I get ready to, I'm 6 months away from graduating. One of my fraternity brothers comes in and he goes, hey, this looks like a job for you. And I was like, he hands it to me, and it's a fax that somebody pinned, back in the day, they pinned all the job opportunities on a bulletin board in the office. So he hands it to me. He says, wildlife manager at King Ranch. I was like, heck yeah. How do I get this job? So I called Irvin Welch. I said, hey, I'm interested in that job. And he said, well, fax me your resume. We didn't have email at that point.
Sure.
So I faxed him over my resume, calls me back the next day. He goes, hey, can you be down here Monday? Well, Monday was Martin Luther King was his holiday. It was college. So I jump on Southwest for $90, fly down to Harlingen. He picks me up. We meet for the day. He goes, all right, you got the job. But I'm thinking, I got one problem. I got a semester of college left. How am I going to do this? So I go to my advisor, Dr. Dreckhammer. I said, hey, I kind of want to know, is there any way I can do an internship for last semester of school? I might have an opportunity that might turn into something. And he goes, yeah, fill this form out. Go out in the reception area, fill it out, turn it back in. I go, let me know how soon will I hear back from you? And I thought, oh, this is going to take a little while. Turn around and walk out of his office. He goes, you're approved.
Awesome.
So my last semester, I got paid by the King Ranch.
Yeah.
And I was still getting credit for school.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I mean, I did that for like 8 months. And I'd always worked in the landscape business before that in the summers and stuff to make money. I had a little landscape company. So I was like, I came back, from doing that, and I was just kind of doing odd jobs, and that's how I kind of kicked into the real estate business. Yeah.
So what was your day-to-day at the King Ranch?
So it went during hunting season. The day-to-day was you get up about 3:30 in the morning. So I still kind of do every day almost for a few minutes.
Kind of set that pattern in your life.
So you get up, you basically go over, put out, make sure breakfast is put out, or snacks and breakfast is put out for the group. Then you take the guys out to deer stands, or if you're, and then, you basically go back, park the truck somewhere and sleep till about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Go back and pick them up, go back to the lodge, eat lunch, take an hour or two nap, and then about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, you roll out and do it again.
Yeah.
And, the days were long. I mean, sometimes we'd work till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
That meant getting up at 3 o'clock the next morning, man. And you do that 5 or 6 days in a row. And
you're kind of on fumes.
Yeah. You're going, man, I need my break.
Yeah.
How soon is, Sundays and Mondays we were closed. So it's like, how soon is Sunday and Monday coming,
Did you get to hunt out there though? Like on those off days?
Yeah. We got to hunt. I mean, we had access to the property and, it was a great deal for college, guy right out of college. They gave us a truck to drive.
Yeah.
Bought our food, gave us, all the food we needed and clothing. I mean, it was like when you were on the ranch, you were just basically taken care of.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Well, that's, my son would be all about that if he could get that job. So.
Yeah. There's still those opportunities. It's pretty tough. I mean, when I saw that come up, it'd been up there like an hour.
Yeah.
I went and immediately sent my resume to him.
Yeah.
Like run, don't walk to the career center.
Well, good for you for having your resume ready to go at that point,
Yeah. Well, I knew when I got out of school I had to have a job.
Yeah.
There was that was very clearly told to me. You will have a job.
So you get back from the King Ranch, and then you said you're kind of just doing some construction stuff for a while.
Yeah,
and that led you into real estate. So
I was doing landscaping work, and I'd done that all through high school to make extra money, and I was backing into my mom's driveway with my trailer because I'd park it there because I was living with a buddy. And a new guy had moved in next door to her. He peeks over the fence and, like Mr. Wilson and Home Improvement. And he goes, "Hi, I'm Scott Miller." And I was like, "Hey, Scott, how are you?" He goes, "Hey, can you help me out?" And I said, "What do you need, man?" He goes, "Well, today's my anniversary. I need to borrow a machete, a chainsaw, your trailer, and some trash bags." And I said, What? I was like, "Whoa, I don't know you. And this is a real weird introduction here, but please do explain." And he goes, "Well, I own a bunch of properties over in the Hines market and I need some help, but I just want to borrow your tools." I said, "Man, I don't loan my stuff out." I didn't know this guy. It's the first time I ever met him. And I was like, he goes, "Yeah, well, can you help me tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I'm available tomorrow. I'll do some work for you."
Yeah.
So I went over and started working for him, and I worked, 4 or 5 times for him. He goes, "Hey, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to decide. I'm either going to get in real estate or do something, I'd already started working on my real estate license." And he goes, "Well, hey, why don't you come work for me?"
Yeah.
And they own 8 or 10 buildings over there in Hines, and he needed help leasing and, just doing property management stuff. And I thought, well, this would be a good fit. So I got my license, went over and started working with him.
Was this Bowlands and Miller?
Bowlands and Miller,
okay,
yeah. So, and his grandfather was still alive, Dubby, and, he had started in the real estate business, I think, back in the 40s.
Okay.
Because he had been on the real estate or on the city council back in the late 50s.
Yeah.
So, and he lived to be 104.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So what a great place to start, just doing property management, some leasing. That's kind of like getting a mix of everything thrown at you on it. And so how long did you work for him?
So I worked for him for about a little over a year.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not making enough money.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is fun and every day's cool, but I got to make more money. You know? So, and I ended up getting a sublease over on Sinlac from a guy that Scott had been with Jack Fraker and Todd Platt over at Cushman's. So he still had some clients from there, and guy sold his company and needed to sublease 50,000 feet on Sinlac. So I get the listing, and hey, Scott goes, "Hey, you just handle this." I'm like, "Okay." So I showed the building to Mark Miller.
Okay.
And Mark and I kind of hit it off. Mark goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of trying to decide what I'm going to do." And he goes, "Well, why don't you come talk to us?" So that's how I ended up at Robert Lynn, and I was there for, I guess, about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a good experience. They had a great training program, really kind of, learned a little bit more about, industrial real estate and how things worked, and how to kind of canvas an area. And so that's how I moved into that. And then from there, I went on to Henry S. Miller, and I was there for 11 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get Mark on here. I can't. He's being a little reluctant about it, but I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him eventually.
All right, man.
No, no. A lot of people spawned out of Robert Lynn company and Henry S. Miller. I mean, like I was telling you before we started this, I was talking with Nathan Denton the other day on here, and I didn't realize how many people were at Henry S. Miller. Like he started naming off all the names. I was like, golly, those are all just.
We were, I mean, back at that point in 04, 05, 06, we were really a force to be reckoned with. We had Dan Spica and David Teeter, Eric Duyay, Nathan, Trey Fricky. I mean, it was, we were pretty stacked as far as good brokers. Michelle Hudson, Janice Peters. I mean, it was, we were involved in probably, I'd say, one of every 15 transactions that was done in the Metroplex industrial-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, we had enough bandwidth, and we were really stacking up the deals.
Yeah. That's what I by the time I got in the business, their industrial presence is really pretty much dissipated at that time. I just knew, Jeff worked there for a year before he went to Robert Lynn.
Sure.
And, but I was really shocked when Nathan ripped off that same list to me. And I was like, golly, those are a lot of, very prominent industrial people. And, so you're there for 11 years, and one thing about you too, you've always bought property too. So were you buying buildings when you were at Henry S. Miller? Did you start buying buildings then, or was it?
Yeah, I started buying buildings, and then Greg and Sam Cartalis and I syndicated a couple buildings while we were there too. And all of them did very well. I mean, we bought the old NTB building on Inwood Road. And it had like two or three. We bought it from, I think it was Joe Doy, and it had 2 or 3 years left on the lease. And while we're under contract, they come to us and go, "Hey, we need to sign a new 15-year lease. We're putting in a training center in the back. We need to secure this so we can spend that big capital investment." Oh man! And I was like, "Oh, here we go."
What a timing thing! That's great, man. If they would have came to that owner before you put it under contract, it would have been a different deal for you.
It probably wouldn't have been a deal for us.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I bought from your brother. We bought the old the corner at Empire Central and Harry Hines.
Okay,
we bought that from. I think who that was that we bought that from, but that was the first deal that Greg and Sam and I kind of put together. And that turned out to be a pretty good deal too. Still sitting there, but it's half a block from UT Southwestern.
Yeah.
We ended up selling it, but it's just a matter of time on that one before that becomes something else.
Yeah. What? Where did you? So after Henry S. Miller, where'd you go then?
So I went to Cushman and Wakefield for 3 years. I felt like Miller was changing. I felt like I'd kind of outgrown my my abilities there, and I was like, I need to figure out something else. And about that time, I met Mike Lipsy, went and took one of his classes down in Austin. And he said, "Hey," I said, "Mike, who do you know that's a great broker that, I could really learn the industrial business from?" And he goes, "If you want to learn the industrial business and really understand the corporate side of the business, you need to go work with Jim Dieter out of Chicago." And I was like, all right. So, figured, heck, I'll pick up the phone, call Jim Dieter. Called me back. I said, "Hey, I want to come talk to you." And he's like, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm an industrial broker down in Dallas." I said, "Here's what I've been doing." I mean, I was a top producer last year at Henry S. Miller in the entire company. I said, "I want to come talk to you." And Jim's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So fly up to Chicago, meet with Jim. Takes a couple months, but we get the deal worked out. And I said, they wanted me to sign a 5-year deal. I was like, "No, I want to stick with 3. I'm comfortable with that. I don't know where I'm going to go from there."
Yeah.
So they agreed to it. They kind of reluctantly agreed to do that. So we did it, for 3 years and like 1 month, I, worked there. Jim retired right at 3 years. It was interesting. He retired and I just said, "Hey, it's, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to start looking for something else." And that's how I kind of ended up at Primera. Was I'd done a couple deals with Ralph and Cornelia Hines. And, I was kind of interested in the leasing aspect of the business and really learning the property management and leasing real well, because I felt like I wanted to do some more investment stuff. Yeah. And that just turned out to be a great fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's Mike Lipsy, man. It's a name I haven't heard in a while, but he was kind of like the commercial real estate coach,
Yeah. I mean, that was back in like 2009 or 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, so, I mean, he's like, "Come take this class." And I was like, okay, it's 2 days down in Austin. So I go down there and it's at UT, take the class. I was like, but I mean, I picked up some good things out of it. And I was like, who's the industrial guru? And he was right.
Yeah.
You know, Jim Dieter was it, you know.
Yeah.
Dieter the delegator.
That's awesome. So, yeah. So going from Henry S. Miller, that's a very, you know, are they only Dallas based? Are they?
No, they're Texas based.
Texas based.
Yeah,
so, but I mean, going to Cushman, that's a global, you know, the publicly traded, you know, juggernaut type brokerage, and it's kind of different. What were the differences that you noticed, good and bad? I guess.
mean, so you know, going from Henry S. Miller local, you know, hey, you could make a decision. You walk down to Sam, or you know, if you had to, walk to Vance Miller, and hey, they'd make a decision. Hey, we're going to do this, or Vance, I don't think Vance, Greg, Sam, this isn't working. We need to do X to be ahead of the game. Whereas at Cushman, you turn it in on an email to somebody, and it might go to 40 people and get lost before you ever got it instigated. And it was like, oh man, you know.
Yeah.
And so that it was, you know, it was corporate. I learned a lot. I made a couple of huge deals when I was there.
Yeah.
But it was like it wasn't a fit for me long term.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So, I'm too entrepreneurial, and they don't really.
Well, I was about to say, don't take offense, but I never, like when you went there, I was like, man, this isn't, you know, you're too entrepreneurial. Like, and, you know, it's just, I kind of see some of the, you know, some of the national brands. I mean, some of them, like, I don't even think they allow their brokers to buy into buildings or something like that, or some of them. So
at Cushman, you're not allowed to. It's in the contract. You're not allowed to buy into deals. But I said, hey, I'm going to go learn this system just so I can say, hey, I've worked at a small shop, boutique shop, regional shop, national shop.
Yeah.
So I've worked at the four, and I guess of the four, you know, Henry S. Miller was, you know, because of the timing and where we were and who we had working with us.
Yeah.
That was probably, you know, that was good times.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you know, it's funny about the nationals, like not allowing you to buy buildings. You know, it's like, but they all buy buildings. Like CBRE, I mean, like they own Trammell Crow. Like,
well, I mean, CBR investors, you know, I mean, I get packages from them probably, you know, every couple months for, you know, a deal. Cause, you know, Primera is an owner. And so we get those packages. I'm like, this is kind of a weird coincidence. You know, they're saying, hey, you can't buy buildings, but yet you can buy into our corporate, they can buy into their corporate deals.
Yeah. So
like CB, you know, they won't let them buy an individual. I don't know about CB, but I mean, I know that, you know, like at Cushman, you can buy into one of their corporate deals, but you can't buy.
You just can't go buy an individual deal.
Buildings, yeah.
I had there's a broker at Cushman I'm really good friends with, and I was dogging on him one day. I go, what are you doing today? Working on your 500,000 square feet tenant rep needs you got going on right now? And he goes, you know, man, he goes, let me tell you the flip side. He goes, I never work on a building I could ever buy. And I was like, he goes, you get to work on those things. I was like, oh, that's true. So, so, you know, there's give and take with that stuff. And, but yeah, then you made when did you go to Primera? How long you been there? 10 years?
11 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's been a good experience. You know, I've learned a lot, and, you know, yeah.
Well, the owners of that are entrepreneurial, so they let you, you know, you handle their product, and then you kind of go do, you know, your client business and all that stuff, and so that's.
I run their portfolio, and then, you know, I also, you know, still have a bunch of clients I've had for years that, you know, just still running their deals too. So
I'd love to hear your opinion on this, because I think you're one of the definite OG people in this space. But you know, it's funny how we were always messing around with these buildings on 5 acres, and no one, you know, there's probably about 3 of us that cared about them. And now all of a sudden, you know, corporate America terms it iOS, and everybody's in the game. Right. So, I mean, you were doing these buildings with Yard from the get-go, it seems like. So, I
mean, I started in that space. I kind of remember when I got started, I was introduced to the associates out of Irving, which, you know, which has sold several times since, sold to GE, and I think it sold again.
Yeah.
I was introduced to them, and they said, hey, we need to find a truck maintenance facility where, you know, we're going to, you know, for our off-lease trailers and stuff that's coming in. And I said, okay. So, and the gentleman was handling that for him out of California, and he and I became really, really good friends. Unfortunately, he passed away about 8 years ago, but I ended up selling him a building, the old Heil tank manufacturing facility out in Fort Worth in Blue Mound. And it just kind of snowballed from there. You know, I had that property and they were using half of it and I was leasing the other half out. And, you know, in the process, I ended up doing, I think 8 or 9 deals with the associates and with Corey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, then on the top of that, I met the group that, which was Drive Time, which has ultimately become Carvana. And I've done several deals with those guys.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's, the similar thing happened to me, you know, working in Brook Hollow, working up and down Irving Boulevard, you know, I end up doing a fleet maintenance deal for, you know, hey, I need a shop on 5 acres and I find it, you know, and then they tell a friend, hey, this guy found me my shop. Oh, hey, will you find me a shop? And I mean, I got to the point where I had so many referrals for find me a building on 5 acres. And I looked at every deal that I'd executed and they were all off market because these things just don't come available, you know, very often. So finally, when I just like, I'm not doing this unless I have a listing. Like, you know, it has to be a listing.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason a lot of our thesis is to buy those buildings because they lease so quickly because there's a high demand for them. So.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those deals that the demand, and then also, you know, the municipality makes a big difference on those deals. You know, finding cities that would work with you, and you know, we had great success in Grand Prairie, you know, over in, you know, kind of West Fort Worth. I mean, and it just kind of was one of those deals. You know, like you said, once you meet one guy, it's like, oh, well, this guy helped me find my building. Well, I've been looking for 4 months, and you know, you go and go, hey, there's this deal coming up over, you know, here in Grand Prairie off at 30, but you're going to have to jump because the minute we put it on the market, there'll be 22 people that want to lease it.
Right.
So, and they'd been looking for a while. They're usually pretty bruised up from trying to do it on their own. Yeah. They go, okay, well, you found it. Let's sign the lease today. Yeah. So I just found that niche and I was like, this is great. Yeah. No, it is funny. I had one of my, they're actually an equity partner of mine, but they owned a trucking company and they owned an asset and they owned a brokerage like most trucking companies do. And they'd sold their asset division and they owned like a 8,000 foot shop on 5 acres in Grand Prairie. And I remember turning in the listing form to Mercer Company and they're like, are you not having a junior broker work on this with you? I go, no, this will be done in like 24 hours. I put it on the market. Sun States Equipment offers me full price immediately. Like it was done. I mean, most of those deals, I mean, I guess I'd say of our deals that we've done, most of them are gone. Probably 60% are gone within a month. Yeah. Or less. You know, it's like they call up and go, hey, you know, we need that, or, you know, we keep a list. You know, hey, these are the guys that are looking. And when something comes up, I send it out to those 20 guys. One of them's call me like, or sometimes more than one at a time going, hey, what time can we be there? And it's like, okay, I got a showing at 9, a showing at 10, showing at 11, and a showing at 1. Yeah. You know, the one thing I've noticed about those assets and you know, I knew this when I bought this property, but the deal still makes a lot of sense. But like, these just iOS lots type deals, they don't really seem to move that quick. Yeah, you really need to have a shop space on it for maintenance and all those things. So we bought this property on Elmer Freeway. I don't know if you've seen it. Bo Puckett has it out for us. He sold it to us, and it's a it's a 7 acre fully concrete site, but it's a truckload carrier site, but it doesn't have a maintenance down in Cedar Hill.
Yeah, down in Cedar Hill, and so we're in the process of. You know, we're kind of going to make the decision this week or early next week to just start. We're going to have to put a building up to really maximize getting the leasing because everybody just keeps, you know, well, we need a shop space too. So I'd really be curious to see how all these guys that got into just the storage lots really do on that stuff because that seems, I don't know.
We've done well with those too, but you know, you're right, either a shop or an office. I mean, a lot of the stuff we've leased for, you know, trailer parking. You know, we got involved down in Wilmer Hutchins. Yep. Back in, I guess, 2010, 2011, right when I started Cushman, sold a property on 27 acres with about 8 shops on it. And that thing, you know, we were leasing it and also doing the management on it. It stayed full. It stayed full all the time, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't had to mess with. This is the first one I've ever done that didn't really. We have an office building. We have a nice office building on it, but it needs a shop, and so it's we're under contract on another iOS site right now that doesn't have a shop on it, and it was funny that we were negotiating an extension with the seller, and they were being real hard about it. I just sent them a flyer of my Elmer deal. I said, "Listen, I have a far superior site to yours on the market right now, and leasing is very anemic. I'm not buying this unless I know I can put a building on it. And if you don't like that, I don't care. I'm not going to buy your building then." So he gave me my extension when I kind of put it to him that way. So.
Yeah, I think the shop is key, and I think the other thing is, I think certain markets are starting to get a little saturated with people trying to get in the iOS space.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people that have raised tons of money around it, and it's funny how an acronym can help millions of dollars flow out of an institutional capital partner.
We went from being kind of old, dirty dirtbag properties to all of a sudden, hey, this stuff's worth, I can remember doing deals in, 4 acres with a 6,000 foot shop on it for $6,000 a month. And I just renewed one of those tenants 11 years later, and the rent's $15,000 a month.
Oh yeah.
So you went from making a little bit of money on a bunch of deals to all of a sudden now these deals make, when you renew these tenants, they make, good money,
Yeah, no, I got a shop down in Lancaster, right near the intermodal, and the tenant's coming up on a renewal. And when I started in that space, I it's 3 acres and it's $5,000 a month, and I'm like, we might be going to like 12,500, 15,000 a month now, on these things. So they'll I got them at 10 now, but I'm like, that's still kind of a little under market on that side, and it's been a great investment for me and my partners. So I love those sites. I hate it when I have to sell them, but sometimes I get numbers that make sense. We sold one earlier this year. We bought a 35,000 foot building on 17 acres up in Oklahoma City, and we leased it to Warren Caterpillar, and then they were like, "Hey, we want to buy this," and I was like, "All right, here's the number." And they got there, and I was like, "Damn it!"
Yeah, and a lot of it, some of these sites are really, I think, are kind of, in great areas that are eventually, I think Earring Boulevard being one of them is going to just redevelop. I think the stuff down in the Design District is just going to keep going west.
Yeah, it is. It's starting to. Crazy to see what the Design District's done, because I remember just junky buildings down there that no one took care of. And we're actually, Jeff's buying a building in the Design District right now, and I'm buying it with him. And, it's crazy what we're paying per foot, but like it's cheap what we're paying per foot. Yeah. And it's just like, man, like this is, it's just, watching a market for so long, it's kind of hard to get your head around pricing, right? It's like, it's funny, we buy all these buildings now. I haven't bought one building in Brook Hollow, and that was my sandbox forever, Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with iOS. You go to the owners that have owned this stuff for, 10, 15 years, and you go and present them a number. I mean, just presented one yesterday, actually, to a guy on a 15-acre site with a 20,000 foot shop, and, he's got it leased for $15,000 a month. And he, at the time, 8 years ago, that was a great lease.
Sure.
Now I told him yesterday when I went to show him all the stuff, I said, "Hey, this is a $60,000 a month site," and his jaw just fell.
Yeah.
He's like $60,000 a month. Are you sure you got that right? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, you're probably at a $8 to $10 million valuation on the deal.
Yeah.
Go talk to your CPA and come back to us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's there's definitely been extreme rental growth in that market. The one hard part though is kind of pegging the price per acre on those things, because it does kind of fluctuate. It's not like a pretty, the distribution buildings are pretty clear. It's like, oh, it's 32 clear and it's in this market, it's 750 net. These, they kind of fluctuate based on, what kind of paving do you have? What kind of shop space do you have? How much acreage do you have? And so it's kind of, you got to really dial in, like, when we look at an asset to buy it, we got to really dial in, how much, well, okay, this has concrete, this has asphalt, this has rock, can we put more rock down? Is the city going to allow rock? Are they going to make us pave it? And that's where the big CapEx comes into on these deals.
Yeah. So. I mean, we got one right now. We're having to spend substantial money, over $1 million, because, they're making a sprinkler to the building. They're making us concrete the part of the lot. I mean, that's the thing about these outside storage deals. At some point, the municipalities start to really get tough.
Well, and then they also screening, Oh, yeah. They're starting to make you screen these lots, and it's not like put some metal panels up. It's build a masonry wall all the way around it.
Yeah.
On the note of cities and outside storage, I was working with a pallet company one time, and we were working on buying a truck terminal in Irving. And it was over here off of Union Bower, and there's a lot of kind of topography over there in that little Union Bower part, pocket. And the road, the property was sitting probably a 20-foot drop down gradient into the property site from Union Bower. So I was like, well, we're kind of naturally screened, right? Like, and then it had trees surrounding the whole area of it. And, so here's the front of the property. Here's Union Bower. So I go to the city and sit down with a planner, and I'm like, "Hey, man, what can we do so this guy can buy it and get a CO?" He goes, "Well, you're gonna have to screen it." I go, "So pretty much just across the front, right? Because this is all trees." He goes, "No, you're gonna have to screen around the trees as well." I go, "What?" I mean, it's like a forest. I was like, he goes, "Yeah, we don't know what's gonna happen to those trees," and I was like, this shit ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
So I looked at him and I said, "Hey, so what are you doing about TxDOT?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, don't you own Texas Stadium site? Doesn't City of Irving own that?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, your tenant's not in compliance, and they're storing outside out there, and I can see it. There's no screening. Are you going to require them to screen it?" He didn't like that, and that was the end of our meeting.
Yeah. I mean, we've had it where, we had a big public utility that we were selling a site to, and city goes, "No, you're going to have to screen the 20 acres. And they said, "You want to continue to get electricity in your city?" And they said, "Yes." Then we can't afford to screen the whole thing, but we have to have this facility to be able to service the electrical.
They're actually, they don't have to go by the rules of the city. And we had that because we have one of those big electrical providers as a tenant in one of our buildings. And part of their deal was they had to build a fence. Well, they built a fence inside our fence, and they didn't have to permit it. I mean, like, it's what, rules for thee, but not for me type deal. But yeah, they're immune to the rule of law when it comes to city code. Yeah. So I don't know. I try to stay away from cities as much as I can. I was telling you about that site where we're looking at building a building. Man, we had a pre-development call yesterday with the city, and I was just like, I don't think I want to do this. It's exhausting.
Let somebody else do that headache.
Yeah, we'll just go find another deal.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens on there. So, well, okay. Something I always like to ask on this is, we've all made a ton of cold calls in person, but and you get into some awkward situations or some funny or just what's one of your most memorable, awkward, funny cold calls that you've made?
Well, the most memorable probably is when I got bit by a German Shepherd.
Oh, God.
I mean, I walk in there, typical no soliciting,
yeah.
Which means good real estate deal in here.
Yeah.
Because half the brokers aren't going in there. So I was like, but I walked in, and the guy was on the phone, turned away from me. And all of a sudden, out from underneath his desk comes a German Shepherd and grabs a hold of the back of my leg. And I was like, oh, hell.
Oh, my God.
And this was I guess 2 or 3 years ago now. But it was that was one of the most awkward. And then I had another guy that I really thought he wanted to fight. I mean, he was mad enough that I handed him my card, and he goes, "Can't you read? Dang it." And he throws my card back and hits me in the face. And the next thing I know, he's up. And I was like, oh, man. I was like, okay, I'll step back, man. I'm out of here,
Oh, my gosh. Well, so hang on. Let's talk about the German Shepherd for a minute. So the German Shepherd bites you. Does the guy get off the phone? Or
the guy starts freaking out, and he's like, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm fine,
Yeah.
It ripped my pants, but I mean, I was like, I'm like, it's all right. But I ended up making a deal with the guy. So
okay, well, that's
So I mean, it turned out he was getting ready to retire, and he bought that dog because he didn't feel safe where he was.
Yeah.
His business was in a part of town that he was and he had a little small shop, and he was he's in the saw sharpening business. He's like, I'm getting ready to retire, and he's like, So I was like, well, just call me whenever. It didn't really make a big deal out of it. I said, hey, just let me know this dog's vaccinated. I'm not going to get rabies or something.
Yeah, right.
And so, about a year later, he calls me. He goes, hey, you came in. And I said, yeah, I remember you.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'll tell you what, I'm getting ready to sell my building. Do you want to sell it? And I said, yeah, I'll sell it.
Yeah.
I sold it like in a day and a half.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So,
well, it was worth it. I had the distinguished honor of being the first person at Mercer Company to sell a building that had a pit bull present in it. There's a building in Brook Hall that no one would go into because there's a pit bull in it. And I just went right past it. I was like, and I ended up selling the guy a building. So
it's like, hopefully you're friendly.
Yeah. Let's
stay
hope
back,
this works. Hope this works. You cool? So, but yeah, no, that's and then the guy wanting to, man, there's some people that just get so pissed off.
Oh man,
I get it, right? We are kind of intrusive. We're running up in your business. So in the middle of the day, you're probably in the middle of something. But man, there's no reason to act like that, No.
Well, I guess another interesting cold call happened about a year ago. So this time last summer, and this last summer was so hot.
Yeah,
and so I remember I've been chasing this guy for 2 weeks. I got to get this little 2-acre parcel so this developer will buy this 20 acres of land up in Louisville.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, so. Been chasing this dirt excavator guy. Can't find him. Been to his house like 4 times. Taped cars on the door. Taped them on the Amazon boxes. I'm like, I've got to track this guy down. So I go over to his shop. I drive back there, and 3 or 4 of you guys are sitting on a cooler having some beers. I'm like, hey, how do I get in touch with Mr. Corona? They go, I said, oh, I thought about it. I drove down the road to Murphy, USA, bought a 24-pack of beer, drove back over there, and I said, hey, y'all want a beer? I said, yeah, we want a beer. I said, can you tell me how to get in touch with Corona? And he goes, yeah, we can get you in touch with him. Picks up the phone and calls him, hands me the phone. He goes, well, I'll be back to the shop in 10 minutes. I'm like, I'll wait on you.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I have 2 beers and I'm supposed to work out at 6:30 in the evening. Man, I got to my workout and I was like, my trainer's like, what the heck is wrong with you? What have you been doing?
Chasing a real estate deal.
Chasing a real estate deal.
So he came down and talked to you at that point?
He came down and talked to me. I ended up selling the property.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, that's what, it's funny, man. It takes stuff like that. I've done things like I've, you chase maybe a guy down, you can't get him. And I've sent like a FedEx letter where he has to sign for it. So like they just keep delivering until he signs for it. And it's like, hey, please call me. I have this idea for you. Another thing that I've always done too is like, there's one guy in Brook Hall I could never get into. But I walked in there one time and I just wrote down on we used to have those little cards, kind of like, you write on these cards and say, I just said, I have information about a building on your street that you don't know about. And secretary walks back down and goes, he'll see you, So, you got to have that hook or that persistence, and, I dropped my card off enough time. I ended up not doing a deal with him, but I finally got to meet him. Like, I was like, it's like, you're like, yes, I finally did it. At least I got there, and it's kind of always a rewarding feeling once you pursue somebody like that.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing was when I was early on, I don't do it anymore, but early on when I was in my career, I would go on Saturday mornings. Yeah. And I would drive the market and there'd be, 8 or 10 decision makers, maybe between 60 buildings.
Totally.
But if the guy's there, secretary's not there, you're walking right. If the door's unlocked, you're walking right in. Or if you knock on the door, the guy's going to go, hey, come on in.
Yeah.
What do you need? Why are you here on Saturday?
Yeah. So 2 things. You're exactly right. I used to drive them. I would every now and then I'd find a guy on a Saturday morning. And then what I'd also do when it was snow day, those were the days I would go call on everything over 100,000 square feet. Because the decision maker always made it in, but the gatekeeper didn't. Yeah. And that always proved to be pretty fruitful. And then what I'd also do was one day a week I would cold call like until 6:30 at night, because after 5 o'clock gatekeeper's not there, but the decision maker is usually still there. So I would get a lot of good call hits in the after hours on a weekday. And so, yeah, but that's kind of the thing of doing things that others don't,
Yeah.
And and finding these guys, and that's how you end up making relationships, and that's how a lot of guys they like that. Like, hey man, like you're here at 5:30 at night. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
you're here Saturday morning at 8:00. You're actually out hustling.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, okay. Let's move on to this. I like to always kind of pull this out of people is like, what's a very unique, like, kind of pinnacle deal that you pulled off that had a lot of maybe hair on it, or just, a lot of intricacies that were hard to work out, or just a very memorable deal to you that you did.
So, I mean, I did in the last 2 years, I've done two pretty interesting deals. One being up north of Lubbock. We bought a 700,000 foot building on 1,200 acres.
Yeah.
Put together an investment group, and everybody's like, looked at me like, what are you doing? You have lost your mind. So we bought the building from Cargill, turned around and had sold a bunch of stuff off private tree, and then had a big, huge auction, sold everything. Ended up leasing. Walmart was down the street. So I started calling on the distribution center at Walmart in Plainview, Texas. And I'm like, finally get into him, and he goes, hey, we actually need space. We need 50 to 75,000 feet. We got to move our distributor of pallets out of the building because we're out of room here. It's like, all right. And this was right during COVID. So we meet with the guys. They come down and lease 75,000 feet, the freestanding building. And about 2 months later, a big fertilizer company came to me and said, hey, we need to lease some space. So we leased them 40,000 feet. And we turned that around, put that on the investment market and sold it. Wow. But it was a real challenging deal. And, it was a good deal to be an investor in, but also learned a ton about working on a deal kind of in a rural market. And got to know some brokers real well up in the Panhandle. And there are a lot of deals that actually flow back to Dallas from there. Yeah. Especially in the cotton distribution part of it. So
those big 3PL deals right there. Yeah. What, so you said you were auctioning off stuff. Did Cargill leave you with a lot of equipment in there and whatnot, or?
Yeah, they left about 80% of the equipment in the building.
And this was a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, it was meat processing.
Meat processing. So, So you hire an auctioneer, you monetize the property that way by auctioning off the equipment. Didn't you strip a lot of the copper out of it too?
We took tons of salvage out of it. Yeah. Copper, stainless steel, steel. I mean, it took them 8 months to clean the whole building out. Yeah. Once the auction was over, what was left, we sold everything else to a salvage company. Yeah. They came in and pulled it all out and gave us a percentage of what they took out.
I remember when that deal was out there, it was an anomaly of a building. It was just like, God, what does anybody do with this? Kudos to you for figuring it out. That's awesome.
Yeah. We ended up selling it to a meat distribution company. It was the largest company out of California that distributes fresh meat product. Oh. And they bought it from us. But, I mean, it was interesting because it was right when we put it on the market right in the middle of COVID. And we ended up having a ton of people from the Bitcoiners, miners, come in and try to buy it because it had its own power substation. Sure. And the power co-op was like licking their chops. They're going, hey, we can double the size of the substation. And we were making $1 million off of Cargill. They were figuring they were going to make $1.5 million off of the Bitcoin mining for electrical. And I was like, but I didn't get a good feeling about that whole deal.
Those guys never seemed real. Like every time a Bitcoin guy called me, I was like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, we had one guy that he flew in from New York and he was serious. I mean, he had actual cash money to put up for a deposit. Yeah. And I was like, that's what made me nervous. He's like, I got true cash. I mean, I'll prove it to you if I need to. I was like, no, I think we'll keep looking.
Probably sold it to the best buyer then, sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. And then we had another deal. My neighbors, my neighborhood where I moved into he's a attorney with a big law firm here in town. And he and I'm a big duck hunter and he is too. He'd see me leaving at 5:30 in the morning to get in my truck to go hunting on Saturday mornings. So we talk every once in a while. I said, hey, what do you do? He goes, I had a real estate practice here in Dallas. And I was like, well, hey, let's go have lunch one day. So we had lunch, kind of became friends. We'd see each other walking, we'd walk about the same times a day. And he came to me, he called me one day and he and his law partner, and they said, hey, we've got a company that's looking at buying a big deal up in North Plano. I said, okay. So anyway, we ended up selling a huge campus up here in North Plano that was a great deal. It's the biggest deal I've ever worked on.
That was a brokerage deal for you.
Brokerage deal.
Yeah.
But it's the biggest deal I've ever worked on.
No, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, monetary wise, the biggest deal I've ever done.
No, that's awesome.
So
how big was the building?
380,000 feet.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it was, on 40 acres. It was, it was a big deal. I mean, and I just, I've always been good at networking and kind of meeting people. And that deal kind of came out of, out of nowhere type deal. I mean, I could have never cold called the group. We had an NDA, but I could have never cold called the group and got the decision maker to even answer the phone for me. Yeah. So, I mean, that was just one that kind of happened.
Well, I mean, that's just part of hanging around the game long enough, right? You know enough people at some point, and they're like, "Hey, this is right up this guy's alley. You need to call him." It's funny. I got a call the other day. A buddy of mine. I haven't kept up with him much, but we were teammates together at Tech, and he reached out to me and he goes, "Yeah, I've been working with an XYZ shop, and I haven't been very happy with it." And he goes, "I'm in this like executives group," and kind of brought it up to them that, "Hey, I need to find somebody to work with." And they're like, "Oh, you need to call Mercer Company." He goes, "Well, I actually know that guy." So he's like, "So help me find a building." So yeah, it's so that's kind of just the way those things work. Your name gets out there in the marketplace, and people have a positive experience, and you've had a successful career, and those deals line up for you at some point. So it's networking is pretty huge, man. I think it's knowing a lot of people that do a lot of different things that will stumble into things and think of you as that person whenever that need arises. Yeah,
and I think a big part of it is too just treating everybody fair and being nice to everybody, because you never know who your ally is going to be,
right?
Or where it's going to come from,
right?
The business comes from a lot of different sources. I mean,
yeah, it does. That's very true. You never really know what's on the other end of a conversation. So,
true.
Okay, well, what are kind of some routines, habits, things that you've always done in your career that you kind of made you successful and got you where you got today? So
one routine I do is, I start to feel burned out.
Yeah.
I took that caliper test when I was at Robert Lynn, and they said, "Hey, we just don't know if he has the longevity to stay in the business." And I was like, I thought, well, and I've always kind of taken that a little bit and gone, "Hey, I need to, sometimes I have to recharge my batteries." And that sounds crazy, but like, I'll just take 2 days off, and it's like those 2 days, I still work, but I don't work at the full intensity level. Cause if you do, if not, I've gone 6 months and not done anything, and I just burned myself completely out.
Yeah. That that's fun. You bring that up. That's something no one's really brought up, but that's a real thing in this business, man. It can grind your ass to a pulp sometimes, and that's something you need to do. You got to take some time for yourself. Otherwise your brain will just melt.
Well, and I think too, connectivity now is more than it's ever been. Like last night, I'm getting emails at 10:45 at night.
Sure.
And it's my choice to answer them, but I like to make sure that everybody's taken care of. So I try to answer my emails, but there are times I just turn my phone off. Like it might be, and sometimes it's at 10:30. Yeah. And sometimes it's at 4 o'clock. Some days I come home and I go, "That's it. I'm done." Yeah. I've played a hard 4 quarters, and I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't have any more juice in the tank.
Yeah. No. I heard a saying one time. If you're going to make like a sculpture, you have to grind, right? You got to grind on it to make it. Well, if you grind it too much, it just turns into dust. And that always kind of resonated with me. It's like, man, if you go too hard, and there's definitely been times when I've burned it at both ends way too hard, and I just fizzle out, and you just kind of fall, I'm definitely not near the pace I used to be, but like, I definitely will just like, I take my time now on things. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get up and do the things I want to do first. And then I'm going to, drink a cup of coffee and whatever, and then I'm going to then I'll answer you, and that's kind of, I don't feel like I miss anything, and but it kind of just helps me keep my boundaries, because to your point, the connectivity can just there's no boundaries anymore, right? And
no, I mean,
and you know, this is a transactional business, right? And it's transactional work with a shot clock, right? You know, it's time kills deals, and you know, you can be on vacation. I mean, they don't. Your clients don't care, honestly. You know, they don't want you to pick it up when you get back. They want you to figure it out right now. So
yeah, it was funny. I was in Africa last year on a safari, you know, and it started for 14 days, and Jean Rousseau called me like, I guess, middle of the week and didn't call her back. And like the next Tuesday, she called me, go, hey, just please call me back or text me and just let me know you're okay.
Yeah.
Because she goes, you're the guy that always calls people back within 30 minutes. And she goes, I hadn't heard from you in a week.
Yeah.
I've tried you twice. And I'm like, so finally I called her back. She goes, where are you? And I said, I'm in South Africa in the middle of the bush. And she goes, why are you calling me back? And I said, well, you said you were worried about me. So, and obviously you had something you needed. So, I mean, but I mean, it was funny because even in South Africa, you know, we had cell service there.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like,
this is funny. Yeah, you know, you remember I had that when I had my steel company, I had that building over there on Avenue R.
Yeah.
And I remember we were signing that lease. Chris Bly was like, oh, the guy that needs to sign the lease, he's on his yacht in the Bahamas. And I was like, bro, okay. Then if he's that baller, he better have a sat phone and let's get this done. Like, I need this lease signed. But now you can't, the traveling and all that, you can't, there's no, that we've broken those boundaries. There's no escaping that. So.
No, it's interesting because, you know, I was talking about this with another broker the other day. I was like, what's up with people that just say that, you know, you send them an LOI or an RFP and it goes into a black hole for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm like, they're like, oh, well, the asset manager wasn't around. I'm like, I do manage a bunch of assets. And there's never been a time when somebody hadn't been able to get a hold of me. There's one time that I can think of that you absolutely can't get a hold of me. And that's when I'm on an airplane, you know?
Yeah. And dude, that they still hide behind the asset manager, blah, 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 blah. But I agree with you. It's total bullshit. It's just, the guy didn't get to it. Like he ain't getting to it. And like, we need to get to it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm kind of, you know, Joey asset manages with me here and I asset manage. But man, if someone's ready to lease my building, like we're going to get this done. You know, it ain't going to be, oh, we'll get back to you in a week and all that. I mean, I'm repping a renewal right now, and it's with an institution on the other side, and my client's pretty corporate, and it's just like, this is going to take 3 months, you know, I don't get it. Maybe because it's not their money, really. You know, these institutional asset managers, it's not their money. So it's like, okay, I'll get to, it's 5 o'clock. I'm out of here. You know, I don't know. Some of them might act like that.
I think too, there's some brokers just, you know, oh, well, did you send to the asset manager? One of them we were working on last year, you know, see the asset manager at a basketball game at the Mavs. I go, hey, did you get our RFP? And he goes, oh, you sent me an RFP? I said, yeah, last week. The broker hadn't even sent it. And he was not too happy. I mean,
yeah,
you know, he's going, what the heck? He's going, what the heck, man? You mean you sent me a request for proposal? I said, yeah, and it's due tomorrow.
Yeah.
I saw him get on his cell phone as he walked away. Like, what the heck, man? You know?
So that happens.
Oh yeah,
that happens a lot, man. And brokers will just sit on things, and it's, you know, it's usually not the best brokers that do that, you know.
Yeah.
And but you know, they might work at a shop where they get those listings handed out to them, and you know, they didn't earn that business, and you know, it's just an account for them. And but yeah, that's that's man, you get me something like it's. Let's get this done. Like, you know, so, well, let me ask you this. What did you do the last time you had to recharge? You just take a day off, or did you go somewhere?
I took a day off. I mean, you know, so, I mean, I'll either, you know, I remember out at gun clubs. So, I mean, I'll go out and shoot, or, you know, sometimes I'll, you know, book a driver fishing trip. You know, I've got 2 other guys that work for me. So, you know, it's one of those deals. I'll say, hey, tomorrow we're going to do X.
Yeah.
You know, or hey, we got a team deal team meeting on this date, and we'll just go do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's cool. That's something we need to do here more. I'm just bad about it. We're always just blowing and going. It's hard to, you know, to your point, but I mean, you need to do it. You got to take that time to disconnect. So, what about a book you read that you feel really, you know, kind of changed you? or gave you some good perspective, or that you liked?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Ever read it?
No, I haven't.
I'll Amazon you a copy today, man.
Okay.
I've probably given out 100 of them.
Yeah. No, it's no, I'm sorry. I've read that. I've read Think and Grow Rich. Okay. I was thinking How to Win Friends and Influence People. No, Think and Grow Rich. Was it your chief aim statement and all that stuff in there, and all
page 36.
Yeah, it's those are very interesting. It's just changing your mindset about a lot of things. It's a very interesting book, very good. He studied the Henry Ford, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilt. Like, he studied all the top people, and I don't know. Yes, I read that book. I think I read that book like 2 years ago. So, but yeah, no, Think and Grow Rich is really good. Didn't they just make a movie about it? I thought they.
I don't know if they did. I mean, I hadn't seen it, but
I could have sworn they made one about it. But
getting your mission statement and kind of it's basically, hey, it's going to be a grind to get there, but you can get there.
Yeah,
type deal. I mean,
yeah. What was it? Was it Napoleon Hill was deaf? Or his
son was.
His son was deaf, and he wouldn't allow him to act like he was deaf, right? Yeah. And that was a very interesting part of that book to me. How he treated his son, and how his son overcame a lot of things that just from the way he kind of changed his mindset about it. Didn't let his disability define him. So I thought that was really cool. What's something about Pete Richardson most people don't know? Something unique,
Probably. I mean, I have bad ADHD.
Okay,
like really bad. Like in school, I struggled to even get it done. But I think it really has helped me in the way that I can manage like 20 or 25 things at one time.
Yeah,
everybody that doesn't have it, that works around me or works with me, is like, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
I'm like, go do this, go do that. And they're like, and I move on to stuff real quick. I'm like, hey, here's this, here's the high point of this, this and this. Go do these, go do this, this and this, and get it done.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, I have an air tag on every set of car keys I own. Because, I'll set something down, and if I don't stick with it, if I don't make a task list or try to get stuff done in order, it can get complicated, and I can get myself in pretty deep if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
But
so that's something you just kind of struggle with your whole life, huh? Did you ever get? I guess they medicate for that now with what?
I've never been on medication. I tried it once in my life, and I was like, I met a doctor, and he goes, "Here, try this Adderall."
Yeah.
And I took Adderall, and it was like the ultimate high, but I couldn't sleep. It was like, I'd take one, I'd be up for 3 days.
I've never taken it. I swear I've talked to a lot of brokers that seem like they're on it. I've always heard that, it just like locks you in focus wise. I was like, man, I don't think I want that. I think it would be too much.
I remember taking it one Saturday. I was like, I'm going to go play golf with some buddies.
Yeah.
And I was like laser focused. I shot the best round I've ever shot in my life, but I was like, I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I was like, I was too focused.
Yeah. So, it wasn't fun anymore at that point. So. Well, that's cool, man. I mean, it's it's cool that you've kind of just overcome that and been so successful, despite of that, Well, what do you see in the market now, man? The deals are taking a lot longer to get done, and I feel like even on the sales side, there's just not a lot of people willing to make a decision. Yeah,
we're giving out a lot of proposals and a lot of BOVs right now, and I think it's going to bear fruit at some point. But people are nervous. I feel like people are nervous and they're not sure where things are going.
Yeah, it's
real hard to tell. I don't think the Fed's going to cut rates this year.
Yeah,
I don't see it happening. I mean,
it's interesting. Europe and Canada cut rates last week, and it's so is that I don't know if that really pressures our Fed to do anything, but like I think we got 2 more years of this. Like I don't, they talk about inflation's coming down, but like man, everything is more expensive still. Nothing's come down. I haven't seen anything come down. And people are still out at every restaurant's packed every night. Like, I mean, it's nuts.
I mean, the only thing you're seeing, I think, that is a result of the high interest rates is you are starting to see a bunch of big corporate layoffs.
Yeah,
that's
true.
I mean, you saw, Kaiser shut their, furloughed their plant in Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
There's been 2 or 3 other big announcements this week. I mean, I think we're kind of, I think the labor market's going to change in the next 6 months.
Yeah, no. So we, Will and I we do our little podcast every week, and we track the unemployment or the jobless claims. Dude, it's creeping up every week, and those numbers are probably skewed too. But I mean, it's going up. I think when we started tracking it was around 200,000 a week. Now it's at about 220,000 a week. So I agree with you. I think companies are going to be shedding a lot of employees here for a while, and that'll slow a lot of things down at that point. The expansion will stop.
Well, inflation that'll take care of inflationary pressure too. You start seeing people laid off that don't have jobs. They can't spend money, can't go to restaurants.
Yeah.
I don't know that in North Texas we're going to see it as much, but I mean, in other parts of the country, I think you're going to see it even more so than here.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, that's I mean, we were reading an article. Was it? And then Walmart the other day, they shut down 1,200 people out of Dallas Fort Worth. They gave them the opportunity to relocate, but all those people won't relocate. Yeah. They'll have to go find another job because they don't want to move to. Their options were like San Francisco and
Bentonville,
and what was it, like New Jersey, so I think if though the majority, if they would move to Bentonville, because it's probably similar to Texas, but San Francisco, New Jersey, those are complete opposite type of worlds. So, well, man, I appreciate you coming on today. That's it's great hearing your story. I've learned a lot from you, and we've worked a lot of deals together in our time, and it's always a pleasure to work with you. And I love hearing your story, and how we're trying to work some deals together now. So,
well, thanks for the time, Jeremy. I enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Pete.
All right,
see ya.